Now you have made a patch, you have an idea of what Max is all about. Max comes with a huge amount of documentation, and it can be a bit overwhelming at first. Max 9 has seen an overhaul of the documentation system, and this is still a work in progress. The first thing to know about the documentation in Max is the built-in interactive help system. Each object has its own help patch, which you can interact with, copy, and adapt. There are several ways to find the help patches. Type Command E to enter edit mode. Right-click on any object and select the Open Help option. Here I'm opening the Counter Objects help patch. If you roll your mouse over the object, you will notice the clue window in the bottom right changing to show the name of the object and a brief description. If you click the up arrow, you can open the help patch from here. When an object is selected, in the Help menu, you will see an option to open its help patch. Let's take a closer look at the help patch for the counter object. You can read the descriptive comments in the help patch to discover how the object functions. This patch has a button and messages that you can click to find out how the counter object will respond. There are 4 tabs in this help patch. One tab shows extra details about the messages that the counter object understands and the use of its inlets. The Arguments tab explains how to use arguments or numbers entered after the word counter to change the counter's behavior. The Final tab can be found in all help patches under the question mark. It provides a link to the reference page for the object and a list of related objects which, if you click, will open their respective help patches. The Related Objects links are a great way to discover new objects. You will use the help patches constantly as you learn about new objects. In fact, most Max users rely on the help patches to remind them how objects they know work and to discover new uses. You can unlock any help patch and copy relevant items from the patch to incorporate into your patch. Here, I'll copy the tempo object to see how it works in my patch. The other main source of documentation is the object reference. The object reference is a formatted page containing everything there is to know about an object. There's several ways to get to the object reference. In Edit mode, select an object and then open the Interactive Object Reference by clicking on the reference icon on the right-hand side of the screen. The Timer Object Reference is divided into sections for arguments, messages, attributes, and the Related Objects section. Arguments are the values you enter after the name of the object. Our counter object has, as an argument, the number 4. If I click on the Argument Options entry, the lower pane fills with a detailed explanation of the arguments that the counter can use. In this patch, the argument is the number 4. According to the reference entry, if there is only one argument, it sets the initial maximum count value. If there are 2 arguments, the first number sets the initial minimum value and the second number the initial maximum. Let's try that. Now let's look at the Messages section of the reference. Messages are the data that flow through the patch cords into an inlet. There are different kinds of messages: integers or whole numbers, fractional numbers called floats, and words or symbols that the object understands. According to the reference, an integer message 1 into the second inlet changes the counter to count down. While I'm here, you'll notice as I hover my mouse over the inlet, I get a hint telling me what messages this inlet understands. Let's try it. First, I'll make a new message object with the number 1 and connect it to the second inlet. Another way to get to the object reference is through the Help menu. Select Help, Reference. This brings up the documentation browser. Click on the search icon to search for the counter. Here is the reference page presented as text. Max objects are divided into several different kinds. The menu on the left of the reference browser shows these different categories. The ones we'll start with are listed under Max and MSP. Under Max, you will find all the objects for handling messages of all kinds. For example, under Max you will find objects for performing simple maths operations. The first one is the Subtract object. Here's its reference page. And of course, there is a link to the useful help patch. The other main kind of object we will be interested in is the MSP category. You'll notice that all these objects have a squiggly tilde character at the end of their name. These objects all handle audio signals. You'll see that there is an MSP signal subtraction object. If we open its help patch, you'll see the MSP objects are connected with stripy patch cords. While we're in the documentation browser, let's look at what's here. The user guide can be accessed from the user icon at the top of the window. There is a guide to using the documentation, which covers most of what's in this video, plus much more. Importantly for us, there is a link to the Max tutorials. We will be using the Working with Max tutorials and the Signal Processing tutorials. If you click on Working with Max, it will open your web browser to the Max tutorials page on the Cycling74 website. These tutorials cover topics such as basic message handling, MIDI, managing data, objects for communicating with other systems, user interface objects, storing patch presets, and JavaScript scripting. I encourage you to start with Tutorial 1 and work your way through consistently, doing a few each week. Some will be more interesting than others. The table of contents on the left shows the tutorial numbers. These correspond to the tutorial names and numbers referred to in some of the quizzes on Canvas. Here you can see the quiz for week 4, instructing you to look at Max Tutorial 8. Let's open Tutorial 8 Keyboard and Mouse Input. Each tutorial has a companion patcher to explore. The text on the tutorial web page refers to objects in the tutorial patch. To open the tutorial patcher, copy the patcher name from the web page, open a new Max patch, create a new Max object, and paste the patcher name into the object. Lock the patch and double-click on the object to open the tutorial patcher. The Week 4 quiz has questions about the key object that you can learn about in this tutorial. There are tutorials for the MSP objects as well. Back in the user guide, clicking on Signal Processing will take you to the MSP tutorials. There are topics here about digital audio, different kinds of synthesis, signal processing, and much more. You can download all the Max and MSP tutorial patches for use at home by clicking Download Series Assets. Unzip them into the Documents Max 9 folder on your computer. The final part of the documentation we will look at are the user guides. Click the User Guide icon and browse through the menu on the left. Each of these pages takes a deep dive into a specific topic. Let's scroll down to the patching section. There's a guide on all the things you can do with a message object. For those of you with some programming background, you might be interested in understanding the different Max message types. You can also find these user guide pages by searching. Here are all the guides related to messages. There are guides on many topics, and this is a way to learn not only about Max, but also about general music and sound design topics. Here's one on frequency domain processing. That concludes this introduction to the Max documentation. We've covered help patches, the object reference, the Max tutorials, and user guides. There is a lot of material here. Try not to get overwhelmed. Working through the tutorials is a sequential approach to learning Max, but often you will learn by discovering new objects, opening their help patches, and learning by experimenting. Through the subject, I will be introducing new ideas for patching as we go, and you are expected to experiment, play, and discover. There will be plenty of moments of frustration, but also many serendipitous discoveries, and the documentation is always there to help.